Hey, Katrina. Can you hear me?
Let's see. Okay, there you
There you
go. There you
go. Good. How's everybody? How's everything going?
Everything's going good. Going good. Trying to take some time off this week.
Yes, yes. I know this is holiday season. Christmas coming up. So, do you do much shopping?
I did some shopping. Some shopping. We have Savannah, and her birthday is on Christmas Day as well. So we, try to celebrate her a little bit this week.
Okay, okay. That's good. That's good. We decided that we're only shopping for quote unquote our grandchildren. So we don't do grown folk stuff. It's funny though, and it's funny because this season I've talked to so many people, and people's like, we don't even have a tree up, and I don't know if it's the season, I don't know if everything is going on, but it's just sort of that feeling in the air, I guess. And not that we're down on Christmas, it's just not feeling the energy to push through it. But yeah,
Yeah, we're slow on our activities too, because usually we're doing a whole bunch of Christmas activities, and I think, and we'll get an opportunity to talk about this a little in our session too. I think a lot of it may have to do with this being the first without his mom.
yeah, yeah,
Then they had plans, so she was going to be here during this season. So
yeah. And I guess I was sort of anticipating this Christmas without Tim, so that was also one of the challenges that we were experiencing. Not to mention everything, the number of deaths that have happened just within the last month. So yeah, we're so grateful and glad to have Gina Pollard with us. Welcome, Gina, to Bob Talk.
Thank you for having me.
We're
That's a pleasure.
We're so we're so glad to have you here. Today, Gina is a grief counselor, and so she's going to bring to us some insight. Prayerfully, she'll give us some ideas of things that we can do. Personally, I think myself at least, and then our audience, our audience as well. Those in the studio, we are in the studio. Those online as well. So, Gina, tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice. And
Sure. In addition to having a grief counseling practice, I am also a pastor of a church in downtown Phoenix. I have been doing grief counseling. Well, I've been doing abuse ministry for, 14 years now. And then from there went on to get my MDiv, so I have graduate level counseling classes, counseling coursework, and then I'm certified by the Grief Recovery Method, the Grief Recovery Institute. So sorry, as well as the Trauma Institute International. So I've been doing that kind of work for a while. I've been in private practice since 2014.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's jump into this. I believe we have two things we want to talk about. Is what are some things we can do for ourselves, and then we're going to talk about how we can help others. So let's jump into that.
So it's interesting hearing Trina talk about so many people being in a place of grief right now. In addition to the normal things, none of us ever thought that we would be dealing with the coronavirus this far into it, right? There was a meme going around social media that said, yeah, I remember back thinking that this was going to last 3 weeks and then it was going to be over. And I remember thinking exactly the same thing. And here we are 2 years later, close to 2 years later, and things are not back to normal, and we're seeing a surge. And so that sort of ramps up the anxiety that we're feeling. But I want to talk for a minute about grief, because people have the idea that, grief is just about death. And that is absolutely not the case. That the Grief Recovery Institute, we recognize over 45 different kinds of life events that can lead to grief. So we talk about things like a change in financial situation, closely tied to everything else that's going on here. So that it can be divorce, it can be estrangement from a loved one, because that's the death of a relationship, for example. Job changes, either for the good or not for the good. And so there are, and a loss of a pet. And I want to just mention loss of a pet, particularly because people will say, I didn't realize how much I was going to hurt after I lost my pet. I've often seen people grieve more over losing a pet than they do over a human being. Because that pet has been there for them come hell or high water, and that's been their constant companion. So understand that grief can come in all sorts of ways, and that no two grievers grieve the same way. So that's thing number one, because people will often say, I'm not sure I'm doing this right. I hear that a lot in my practice. I'm not sure I'm doing this right. And on the flip side, people will say, you should be over it by now. Or other such really, really helpful, I'm being sarcastic here, comments that we make to people. So it's going to take as long as it takes for you to move through the grief. And getting help for that is always a good bet. Finding somebody that you can trust to be able to work through things. And sometimes you may need to enlist a counselor or therapist in order to do that work. For people who have also been feeling like they've been thrown out of the church, this is the time for spiritual trauma as well.
Okay.
So people whose faith lives have changed may not feel comfortable in church right now, or may have grown up in the church, for example, and no longer feel the same way. And so they're missing those rituals and routines that we're used to having. We talk about grief being the normal and natural reaction to change. So if you think about all the changes that you can go through in your life, good and bad, I like to tell people, even if you're getting married and hopefully you're happy about getting married, your relationship with your single friends changes. Like, I'm going to be mean. So yeah, some people are happy about getting married. Some people are like, well, it's the thing to do. I'm 35. Let me just go ahead and do it. But anyway, besides that, but your relationship with your single friends changes. And the other thing is, if you've been single for a while, you are used to coming home at the end of the day and tending just to yourself, and suddenly there's somebody else in your space who's wanting to know what's for dinner or wanting to talk to you. So that's a disruption in your life pattern.
Yeah.
And so there may very well be some grief that goes along with that. When I deal with people dealing with grief, we're talking about in the physical dimension, the emotional dimension, and the spiritual dimension. So the physical dimension means that there may be upset stomach, or there may be high anxiety, because remember, anxiety is not just a mental thing, it's a physical thing as well. It may be sleep deprivation. It could be any number of ways that it manifests for you. I have a lot of folks right now with headaches and upset stomachs. And so we're really working on mindfulness and staying present and coping techniques to deal with high anxiety.
Do you think that the season, the holiday season, can heighten those kind of physical expressions of grief?
Yes, absolutely. Because there's so many things we should be doing, and I love it when people should all over themselves, because that's not helpful at all. There are so many expectations that are supposed to happen, and you're going, and not taking the time to take care of yourself. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah. So for the physical standpoint, what we're asking people to do is to set a schedule and try and hold on to that schedule. And that means if you need a certain amount of sleep a day and you are out late, then you make room for a nap the next day. That you're not just going until you're on fumes. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to anybody else about here. So, and both of you are nodding your head and smiling. So I know you know. You can't go on fumes for very long. And also put down the cookies when you can, because you're just going to get a sugar crash. And then let's try and eat something a little bit healthier. One of the things I try and do in the holiday season is I try and make sure that if I'm snacking, it's like worth the snack. You know, those few foods that you only get at a certain time of the year, or they're your very favorite. So let's go ahead and treat yourself to that, but let's not go crazy on the food.
You know, that's interesting that you bring that up, because that has been, and I hadn't realized it until you just shared it, what I've been doing in regards to gravitating towards the sweets, you know. And I think some of it is some of it's nostalgic, right? But even in that nostalgia, some of it is just trying to cope with the emotions,
Right.
and grabbing something that's sweet. So because it's sort of satisfying, but it's not fulfilling, because I think what you identified, it has the counter effect of not getting rest and getting the things that you need.
Sure. We always crave carbs. We almost always crave carbs when we're under stress, because it affects the serotonin levels in our bodies. And serotonin is sort of that feel good kind of thing that goes on. And so carbs satisfy that, but it's a temporary satisfaction. And sometimes that crash can be made worse by I shouldn't have eaten that. So now we're beating up ourselves because we ate 5 cookies instead of 1. So it's a cycle.
Gina, how are you helping your clients to be mindful of knowing the difference, right? Knowing whether I'm hungry or my body's just craving the snacks, or whether I'm eating from that emotional space?
So in my practice, we talk about STIRs, and those are short-term energy relieving behaviors. And those are the things that we do to numb ourselves because we're feeling anxious or we're in pain. And so those can be food. You know, that kind of starts when we're little. You hurt yourself and mama says, here, have a cookie. And so you associate having a cookie with feeling better. But it can also be numbing out to the internet. I find myself, I should never have gotten a TikTok account, because that was the most ridiculous thing ever. Because you can lose so much time scrolling through those. Yeah, I'm telling on myself. I am who I am. We look at exercising too little or too much, sleeping too little or too much. So I'm always doing a depression screen for people as well, because sometimes people are experiencing depression, which may require medical intervention, or somebody with a different specialty, and sometimes they're grieving, and oftentimes the two get really conflated. So what I do with my clients is I ask them to say, okay, why do I want this cookie right now? If we can learn in our lives, not just at the holiday season, but all the time, to take a beat before we do something, we would all be a little bit happier. So what I ask people to do is to approach it from a standpoint of curiosity. Rather than beating yourself up, or rather than going from pain, so why am I wanting this cookie? Retail therapy, what we call it, and that shopping thing, it's really easy because there's all those deals out there. But the question is, do I really need this? Am I buying it for somebody else, or am I buying it because I think it's going to make me feel good? And if the answers to those questions is, I'm doing this because I think it's going to make me feel better, then the question is, what else could make me feel better? Make sense?
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So finding those alternative coping skills.
Absolutely.
You know, are you walking alongside them to find out what coping skills work for them? Because everything doesn't work for everyone, right?
No, it does not. It does not. You know, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm just gonna say this, because for a lot of people who are dealing with emotions and guilt, for example, my mother. For my mother, every time we talk about something that is going on in my practice, for example, she'll say, well, I just find if I just get into the word, then that works for me. And I'm saying, okay, I'm glad that works for you. and you can have Jesus and a therapist at the same time. So
That's good. That's good.
like,
Yeah.
yes.
And some of us need both. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm happy when I hear pastors and clergy who have therapists. I love my therapist. She's just amazing. And I would not be able to do the things that I do without her.
Yes.
So when I walk alongside them, though, I am asking them what works. I do a lot of guided meditation with my clients, and I refer them to some great sites for guided meditation. Kristen Neff has a book called Self-Compassion, Mindful Self-Compassion. I love her stuff, and she's just got some great meditations on being kind to yourself. Because most of us are really good about being compassionate with other people, but we beat ourselves up from the time our feet hit the floor until we go to bed at night.
Yeah.
And so we have to be kinder to ourselves as well.
I learned something about 3 or 4 weeks ago that has impacted me. It sort of changed my perspective on who I'm around and what my relationships are. And so it was that I need individuals around me who we exchange those kinds of things. So it's how are you what's going on with you, what's going on with your family. But I realized that I need someone who does not require that it's only about me. So when I go to a therapist, it's not about, I'm not asking you how you're doing, what's going on with your family. You're just here to hear me. You're just here and basically here for me. And I think that's important that we have those individuals in our life, because what I end up doing sometimes is leaving with more baggage than what I cared. I'm sitting here having this conversation, you telling me what's going on with you, and we both now are carrying this baggage, walking away heavier than we were, versus when I go to someone who is there specifically for me and only there as a mentor or as a therapist that I can just give to them,
or as an advocate for you. There's a lot of good in having somebody look at you and go, you're really okay. You need to not pay attention to all of that stuff in your head or the other people around you, because you're really okay. But yeah, we need to have that. Somebody to just, to hold space for us. Yeah. That's the critical part. You okay, Trina?
I'm going to go up to the water really quick. Okay. You guys continue the conversation.
Okay.
Good.
So we want to do that. We also want to make sure that we are taking time out to just be. This is a really hard time of the year to find Sabbath rest. So I tell people, find Sabbath in a half an hour or 20 minutes, or preferably a half day, when you don't do anything. And put it on your calendar. I like putting those kinds of things on my calendar, because then when somebody says, hey, can you blah, 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 I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm booked at that time.
Okay.
And I'm booked because I got to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I know one of the things that I have them be mindful. I have them try to be mindful of when they're shaken up and when they really can't focus. Right. Because it's also a key indicator that I need to take that Sabbath.
Yeah.
One thing that you said earlier, you were reminding people to be kind to themselves. I have a tendency to give people new names. Well, not any new names, but I tell them to call them, I name them Grace. Whether male or female, I was like, your new name is Grace.
Grace. Oh, that's so good. I love that. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I do a thing with clients, and I'll ask them to tell me who they are when they become really snippy and anxiety ridden. And I ask them to give that character a new name. And so then when we're talking, my question is, so for me, when I'm particularly agitated, it's Nina. And Nina is not a nice person. So Gina's fine, but Nina, and very few people get to see Nina. But then I ask them things like, so what happens, what brings Nina out? or what brings out your alter ego, and what does that alter ego need? Because we are not good at asking ourselves what we need. Realistically, what we probably need is validation or a hug or a nap or any of those. My favorite story from the Old Testament is Elijah. When Elijah is running from Jezebel's men, and the angel comes and gives him food and drink and makes him sleep and repeats it. So, okay, we're running out of time here. So here's what I want to, if I can just say a couple things and then I'll answer questions. One of those is don't try and fix anybody else. Okay? Do not try and fix. You cannot fix. Secondly, ask people about, if it's because a loved one has died, ask them about that loved one. People love to talk about their loved one who's no longer here. And don't worry about making them cry. They're going to cry anyway. So it's okay for you to ask those questions and engage them. Don't try and force anybody, including yourself, to partake in activities that are not right up your alley. You may have less energy this year. Honor that. Just honor it. It's okay. Pick and choose what you really want to do and put away some of the things that you're doing because of duty. And don't pressure other people to participate too.
That word was for me, because there's been so many people after my father died, and then after my brother died, there's been people who have wanted to do things to celebrate them, and they said, "Well, we want the family to come. We want the family to come." And we're like, I can't. I'm spent. I just can't do it anymore. And that word was for me, is that I appreciate you celebrating them. I love the fact that you're doing it, but I just can't.
Right. Because you have to grieve yourself.
Yeah. That's
and it's
good.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. Now, are there any things that you would say that for those of us who are wanting to support someone who's going through the process? Are there any key things? You've shared some of them, about not trying to make them fit into a box that everybody grieves differently. Are there any other things that you would point out in regards to helping someone who's going through grieving?
My very top tip is that I believe in the ministry of presence. That there are no magic words that you can say, there are no magic things that you can do except be there with them. So if that means y'all sit and watch TV, if it means that you go over and do laundry for them, please don't ask them what it is they need, because chances are they don't know what they need. So offer some suggestions. Can I come do laundry? Can I dust your house? Can I vacuum? Those kinds of things. And for folks who are introverted, send them a text. I send texts all the time to introverts and will say, you don't need to get back at me. I just want you to know that I am thinking of you and sending you love and light today.
That's good. I love that.
Because you know what it's like. You get overwhelmed with, I need to call so-and-so back, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. And I'm giving grievers permission to say there are very few things that you need to do, and those are usually legal or funeral arrangements. And I'm going to say the rest of it, you get to do at your own time. And I will write you a permission slip if you need it.
I like that.
I love that.
Yeah. So the ministry of presence.
I love that, especially the not feeling obligated to respond to a text. Because sometimes I get texts and I was like, I don't know how to respond, and I want to say thank you, but I don't know if that, it's like, is that too shallow? And so I wrestle with that, and being free to not respond is really good. I love that.
Yeah. You need it, and especially this time of year too. Yeah, it's hard. And one more thing, for people who are grieving, don't be surprised if the first year goes better and the second year is harder. That is not saying that you are doing grief badly, because there's no way to do it badly. You're just doing it. But yeah, don't feel like there's a roadmap. and forget about the 5 stages of grief. That was written for people who are dying, not people who are grieving.
Say that again.
Please.
The 5 stages of grieving, when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote that, she was talking to people who are actually dying, not people who are grieving. And so people do think that it's this straight trajectory, and by the time they get to acceptance, they're good. And I'm calling ish on that, because that is not the truth, because you will think that you have accepted it, and a smell or a song or something will come up that will almost bend you over from the grief. And that's okay. We're talking about moving toward resilience.
Yeah. When I talk to people about the stages of grief, I let them know that you can be in acceptance and then all of a sudden be back in the stage of like denial. So
Right.
you can't hold to that stage at all.
Right. And we forget about rage too, because rage can absolutely be a part of it.
Yes.
That's good. That's really good. Well, I believe we're at the moment we need to. This has been awesome. Pastor, I'm going to ask you if you would pray for those who are going to observe this and who are online now. As we come, Katrina, you have any last words or anything you want to share?
No, absolutely. We appreciate your presence here as well.
Absolutely, my honor. It's absolutely my honor.
We will definitely have to have you back so we
Absolutely.
can definitely. Yeah, we would love to have you. So if you would pray for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Creator God, the one who knows what it is like to experience pain and loneliness and betrayal and all of the feelings. Even in the midst of this time when we anticipate the birth of Jesus, God, come to the earth. We ask that you would be with those who are grieving and anxious and angry and depressed and all of the feelings. You have created us to be emotional beings. And so help us to be able to handle those emotions, to be kind to each other, and to be kind to ourselves. And we are grateful for your grace. Amen.
Again, thank you for joining us on Bible Talk. Our guest today, Dr. Gina Pollard. Bless you. Thank you so much. I add that to everybody who's.
Okay. I was like, wait, what are you doing?
We're so grateful that you're here. Her contact information will be put into the chat. Her email and website, so that you can contact her if you have questions or further want to have some direction in regards to that and other resources. God bless each of you. Let's have some Merry Christmas to you all, and God bless you, and peace. And we'll see you next Tuesday for Bob Talk.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.